I'm Anna. I am CEO of V.Mora. And at V.Mora, we help launch fashion designers. We do one-on-one coaching, consulting, budgeting, different things like that will help designers launch pattern samples, manufacturing. So you can contact V.Mora at Makers Row. Hold on, I have this. makersrow.com/V-Mora. So again, I'm Anna from V.Mora, and today we're talking about the top 10 mistakes as a new designer that you guys hopefully haven't made yet. But some of you might have, so you can share your experience on that. But today, I'm hoping that if you haven't made these mistakes, it can literally save you thousands of dollars and tons of headaches. So today's list are the top 10 things to avoid as a new designer. And we're doing this in a 2-part series. So first part is today, you'll get 5. And then you'll have to tune in Wednesday at 4 o'clock for the second 5. Here, Makers Row Live, same thing. So today, we're gonna go over the top 5. The first one is buying retail fabric for your wholesale product. It's very easy to go to your local fabric store to pick up some fabrics, put together your samples. But if you're going to be showing those samples, people are going to be ordering those samples and they're going to want that same fabric. And with a retail store rather, you're not able to go back and buy that fabric. It's not guaranteed to be there. So the best thing you can do is find wholesale vendors that offer small minimums for new designers, and Makers Row again is a great platform for you to be able to find vendors that give wholesale fabric, low minimums, and then when you order that fabric, you can make your sample, and 3 months or 6 months down the line, you're able to order that fabric again to repeat that. You don't want to switch your fabric from your samples to your production. There's so many things that can happen in regards to like how that fabric reacts or shrinks or is sewn or overall look and feel. So you want to be sure that you're using wholesale vendors for your wholesale products. So that is number 1. And number 2 is cutting corners when it comes to your pattern making. There's a lot of ways that you can save money. If you're able to make your own website, if you're able to, use people for trade for your photography, if you're able to, there's so many ways that you can save money. Pattern making isn't one of them. You get what you pay for when it comes to your pattern making. And if it doesn't fit, this is like my biggest saying, if it doesn't fit, it doesn't sell, period. I don't care if you've spent $10 million encrusting this bodice with diamonds and gold. If it doesn't fit, it's not going to sell. So it's so important that you get an experienced pattern maker that's familiar with your product. You're doing swimwear, someone that's done swimwear. You're doing evening wear, someone that's done evening wear. You can get, interns to help with other things with social media. But if you're having an intern doing your patterns, you're going to have patterns that are made by an intern. And I'm sorry, I'm sure there's lots and lots of talented interns out there, but it takes many years to get to the point where your patterns fit right, and that it's math. It's from 2D to 3D, and it's very technical. So it takes a lot of practice to get to a point where you can be a talented pattern maker. So you want to make sure that you have someone with experience, and that you have someone that is familiar with your product, and someone that has, other clients that they've worked on. It's just such a big risk. I'd rather see you take bigger risks hiring interns or hiring less experienced people or hiring, photographers, building a portfolio than with your patterns. So cutting corners and everything from this first season, you take these patterns and you build off of these patterns. So let's say I have this bodice, and then next season I make it with a sleeve, or I make it a crop top, or I make it a V-neck. It's still off of this same pattern. And that's why it's so important that these patterns for your first season fit properly to your size chart. So don't cut corners when you come to pattern making. Number 3, and this one is, one of the largest reasons that I see designers not be successful is they haven't budgeted properly for not only their first season, but the samples of their second. When you're budgeting, I see people waving, when you're budgeting, you want to be sure that you have enough funds to get your first samples, fund the production of those samples, and then before you get paid on this production, you're going to have to develop the samples of your second season so those are ready to sell. And a lot of designers, it's not the fun part to look at budget and money, but it can be empowering to say, okay, I have budgeted $500 for my sample fabric, and then when you go to sell that or go to buy that sample fabric, you can spend that money. You don't have any guilt. You're not pausing on making that decision because you're afraid to spend the money. So doing your budget is so important, and I would sit down with somebody that knows what these things cost, right? Because otherwise they're just numbers that you're making up. And that's something that my company offers, and we can sit down and show you all the things that you should prepare for. But you want to have a realistic budget and figure out how much you can spend on production versus branding versus Instagram sales. Like, you've got to have all of this planned up front. And it's not to say you need $1 million to start a company. I definitely have designers on shoestring budgets that are very successful, but they're very mindful in how they spend and where they spend. You want to get the biggest return on your dollars possible. So number 3 is not budgeting accurately for your launch. Number 4, changing your mind and neglecting to make final decisions. Again, you're starting a company, and there's going to be a lot of decisions, and there's going to be a lot of things to move you forward. And what I see time and time again is right before you've got to go ahead and purchase your sample fabric and make your samples, and right before you launch and go into production, all of a sudden there's all of these decisions, and you're changing your mind, and you haven't found the right fabric, and you haven't decided on your production numbers, and this and that, and everything's going on. But what I can say is that what's really going on here is fear. It's the fear of actually spending money now on that sample fabric, because this is the first time up until you've spent money, up until you've had to buy your sample fabric, this has been just an idea. You've done sketches, you've done fabric sourcing, you've put together a plan, but now you're being asked to spend money on your fabric for the samples. And then all of a sudden it becomes real. So you want to sit down with each of your decisions and say, is this the fear of moving forward, or is this decision something that I can make now, knowing that it might change later? If you buy a sample fabric and it's not perfect, you can buy another sample fabric. You can try something different. Same thing when it becomes time to launch with your website. It's scary. That's the first time you're putting this out there. That's the first time you're putting yourself on the market where everyone can see what you've been working on. And it's scary, but you don't want that fear to hold you back from moving forward. So again, identifying that these are, I share this all the time, that those are the 2 times that I see this fear come out and these decisions come to, a standstill, is right before you buy your sample fabric and right before you launch, whether it be website or moving into production. So you, now knowing that, can kind of adjust to say, I've done all this hard work, I've done all this research, I'm going to go ahead and move forward. There's always rooms for improvement, and you don't want perfection to be holding you back from not launching anything at all. So changing your mind and neglecting to make decisions. And number 5, this one is a big one. Not wash testing, screen testing, dry clean testing, iron testing, everything that will happen to your fabric. You want to test before you make your production. I have seen fabric shrink because the steam from the iron shrinks the fabric. I have seen garments go into the washer and the dryer, and whether maybe you used a blue button and a white shirt and then it bled. You have a screen print or a heat transfer and it pulls the color out of that garment when you put that transfer on. You want to test all of this before production, because you don't want to be sitting on 500 units that are damaged. So do all of this testing before the production. If it's going to say dry cleaning on your label, make sure that garment's been dry cleaned. Make sure that you can iron it, that you can put it in the washer and dryer. Do all of your testing in your sample phases. You also want to check and make sure that you have done a shrink test. So that's to pull a fabric out of, when you get that sample yardage, and draw a 12 by 12 square in permanent marker. Wash it, dry it, measure that square again. If it's shrink anything more than 4%, I would say you either have to adjust in your patterns to know that it's going to shrink, or you've got to switch fabrics. So do all of the testing on your fabrics prior to production. So there you have it. Those are the 5. I'm going to review them because I know that some people popped on after I had gone ahead and said some of them. So again, I'm number 1. Don't buy retail fabrics for your wholesale products. So stay away from the retail vendors. You can use them for other things, but when you're creating a line and you're going to be making production, you don't want to be doing that then. Number 2, cutting corners when it comes to pattern making. If it doesn't fit, it doesn't sell. You want to invest in a good pattern maker. Number 3, not budgeting accurately for production. Budget for the first season samples, first season production, and second season samples. Number 4, changing your mind or neglecting to make final decisions. You want to sit and ask yourself, is this fear, or can I make this decision and move forward? You're constantly having to go through decision making, and the faster you can become, the more you can trust yourself, the better. You don't want it to hold up your entire progress. Number 5, not wash testing, screen testing, dry cleaning your product before production. So there you have it. Those are the 5 summed up. All right, with that, I will start with our next 5 mistakes. So number 6 is skipping tech packs. That might be because you don't know what a tech pack is. That's okay. There's a lot of things to learn when you're launching a collection, but a tech pack is basically a blueprint of every detail in what you need to sew your garment. That will have the measurements of the center front and the center back. It'll have how many buttons, where the labels get sewn. So it's basically everything in detail of what the factory needs to know about your production. So it's super important. And unfortunately, a lot of factories will say, no. We don't need a tech pack. Don't worry about it. But the reason they're kind of saying that is because this is the written agreement and the written notifications for them to know how to complete your garment. If you don't give them a tech pack and there's nothing in writing and they sew something and it doesn't meet your specs, if they never had your specs, there's nothing to go off of. So it makes it easier for them a lot of times to not have a tech pack. So unfortunately, sometimes they might say they don't need a tech pack, but I would strongly suggest creating this tech pack, keeping everything organized, not only for your factory, but for yourself. It has everything in there, your bill of materials, the different sizes this garment is offered in, the different colorways, everything is in this tech pack. So you can use it to organize yourself as well as the manufacturers. So number 6, skipping tech packs. You don't want to do that. Number 7, planning a fashion show, a trade show, or a selling event before you talk to your factory about a deadline. This one is big. Of course, fashion shows are the most fun, and trade shows and selling, that's what we're all excited about. But it's so, so important that you've talked to your factory, that they have all the materials, that they are started on your production prior to you setting that date. I've been doing this for 12 years, and it took me a while. I'll get the phone call and it'll be someone that'll say, please, 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 please help. I have a fashion show in a week and my factory fell through. My fabric didn't come in, this or that, or this or that. Please, please, please help me. And in the earlier days, I would say, yes, absolutely. I will be your hero. I'm going to drop everything. I'm going to push my other clients aside. I'm going to help you because you need someone to help you. But what ended up happening is I wasn't set up with enough time to give the designer the product that they needed at the quality that they needed. Or sometimes the fabric got delayed and I actually didn't have time to finish the sewing. So 9 times out of 10, I wasn't able to meet that deadline, and nobody wins. Nobody's happy. So now it's really, really hard for me, but I do say, no, I can't help you if it's under a deadline that I know is shorter than what I need to give you a quality product. So you want to make sure you have all your supplies at the factory before you set this deadline. So if your factory tells you, yes, we can do your production and it's going to take us 3 weeks, that 3 weeks starts when they have all of your supplies. That means labels, hang tags, size, the size labels, care labels, interfacing. If you're providing thread, that includes everything, because a factory won't start until they have all your supplies, because they set it up so that one person's doing labels, one person's doing sleeves, one person's doing this, and they put it on the line. And let's say they get to the portion where they need the button and you don't have buttons. They pull your entire production off that line, put somebody else on, and wait for that button to arrive. So that will delay that 3-week period. So you've got to be super organized on your end, make sure they have everything, and then the clock starts. So please, please, please don't plan a fashion show or a trade show or some huge launch party until you know for sure that your factory has enough time to complete those garments. And then add a cushion. So I've seen things get held up in shipping. There's so many things that can happen. You just want to make sure, because if you have a fashion show and you don't have your garments, you only get one shot at that. If you've got a trade show and you don't have those garments, again, only one shot. So just make sure that you don't plan anything until your factory has confirmed that completion date, and then you add some time, just in case. So that's number 7. Number 8 is, it's kind of related to number 7, but just in general, not setting realistic deadlines. There's a lot that goes into starting a company and launching a collection. And that's not just the patterns and the samples, but the sourcing of the goods. So you've got to source all your fabrics, order swatches, wait on swatches, order sample fabric, make your samples, test your samples, do your size check run, grade your patterns, make a size check run, fit those garments, then do production, then you've got marketing. So you want to, prepare for your photo shoot and your marketing launch and your social media. So just make sure to give yourself ample time to take care of that, because you don't want to have it rushed, and it's better to take more time than to launch something that you're not prepared to do. So my general rule of thumb is from the time you're selling. So you're going to sell your garments. You want to give yourself 9 months at least, if not 12, to start. Once you get the hang of things and you have your patterns and you have your vendors set up, you already know where you're getting your fabric, it doesn't take as long. But for your very first season, there's a lot of things you've got to learn and put together and find. So you want to make sure that you give yourself enough time. So number 8, not setting realistic timelines. So yes, we would all love to launch a swimwear collection for this summer, but it's just not realistic. You're not going to be able to hit what you want to do in the amount of time before summer. So you just want to plan ahead. Number 9, not thinking all the way through your marketing and your photo shoots. Again, especially right now with everything being sold online, it's so important that you've got great photos and that you have a marketing plan. If you don't have great photos, that's the only way people can see your garments. That's the only way people know whether they want to buy it or not. So if you've spent all this time on creating a perfect sample and having beautiful fabric, it's worth it to make the time and put aside the budget to have a really nice photo, to have that professional model, the professional photographer, or, just like, it could be just talented people that will give you something that's great. But so many times designers get wrapped up in the pre-production stuff that they're not thinking, or they're not budgeting. That's another thing. If you're spending, $10,000 on your production process, you'll want to spend maybe $2,000 on, your photo shoot, your marketing material, or your marketing social media if you're working with influencers. So just make sure that you've planned all the way through, including that photo shoot and your social media. So that's number 9. And now we've got number 10. This one's my favorite. Not being mindful and considerate to everyone you meet in the industry. Whether you believe it or not, it's a small industry. I've been doing this for 12 years and I'm at all the trade shows, and, the designers that have been around, we know each other. People that have been at the trade shows, we know each other. So it's just really important to treat everyone with kindness and respect. It used to be fashion was kind of cool to be this like fashion diva, or to be very dramatic and like throw things around, and that's no longer the case. That person people don't want to work with. Like, they don't want to absorb that anxiety and that drama from somebody else. So the kinder you can be, the further that it will get you. And that goes for other designers too. People are working together, people are collaborating. It's not this like dog eat dog world that it used to be. It's the people that are working together can help each other out. So just keep that in mind. If you're working with a fabric vendor, or there's a factory and they don't end up being your right connection, they may know someone that is right for you. They may be able to suggest somebody or give you a referral. So just always being mindful. And I had, it's just like people that are doing what you're doing, like there's another designer, they're doing something similar to you. If you guys are in the industry long enough, you're going to become friends. You're going to know each other. I'm close friends with a lot of the people in the industry that do directly what I do, and we help each other out, and we talk to each other, and we'll exchange clients, or if I need help on a project, I'll pull in other people. So just be mindful of that and build your network. It's really, especially with what's going on today with COVID and all of the working from home and trying to figure out who's working, who's staying open, who's taking work home. Everyone's really been working together on this, more than I've ever seen in the industry. So it's really, really great. So that's my number 10, is just being mindful of everyone that you encounter in the industry, because although they might not be a direct connection or direct working relationship for you right now, they may be in the future, or they may know someone that could be a good connection for you. So those are the 5 that we're going over today. I'm going to review them because some people probably joined in late. So we've got, actually, you know what? I'm going to review all 10. Number 1, buying retail fabric for a wholesale product. You want to be using wholesale vendors for your samples so that you can reorder it later for production. Number 2, cutting corners when it comes to pattern making. If it doesn't fit, it doesn't sell. It's worth the investment to work with a qualified pattern maker that has experience, years and years and years of experience. It's a very technical thing, so don't cut corners when it comes to your pattern making. Number 3, not budgeting accurately for production. Like I said on Monday, you'll want to budget for your first season samples, your first season production, and then your second season samples, because you'll have to start developing those before you get paid on that production. Number 4, changing your mind or neglecting to make final decisions. This is scary. It's a new business, and you want to make sure when you're going to make decisions, or when you're procrastinating, or when you're spending forever to find that perfect fabric, that it's not really fear that's holding you back. You want to make decisions, learn to make decisions, learn to make mistakes and grow from mistakes and become more successful because you've learned from those mistakes. So continue to make decisions, continue to move forward. Number 5, not testing your samples and your fabric. Wash test, screen prints, dry cleaning, whatever's going to happen to that final sample, make sure that you test it before your production. Number 6, skipping tech packs. It's the blueprint for your factory to know everything, all the directions on how to put together your production, so you want to make sure that you have that. Number 7, planning a fashion show, a trade show, or a selling event before you talk to your factory about that delivery date. Number 8, not setting realistic timelines. You want to make sure that you give yourself enough time to complete this, and that you're not rushed, and that you have the time to do everything right in the way that you want to do. Number 9, not thinking all the way through your marketing and your photo shoot. You want to plan that from the beginning. And number 10, not being mindful and considerate to everybody that you meet in the industry. So there you have it. Those are my 10 mistakes for new designers to avoid. Hopefully you haven't already done any of those mistakes. So I hope you got some information about this that will help you in your launch. I'm going to stay on for a bit to answer questions. Can you repeat number 3? Yep. Number 3 is not budgeting accurately for production. So you want to make sure that you've budgeted first season samples, first season production, and second season samples. And again, I'm Anna Livermore from V.Mora. You can reach me at makersrow.com/V-Mora and sign up for Embark Live at www.embark.live. You can join their waiting list. They're launching June 1st. Okay, so I see a lot of questions, which I'm super excited. I love Q&A. So let's see. What is the minimum budget price for urban streetwear? I get this question all the time, you guys, and I really can't answer that for you, because there's so many different ways that you can start a clothing line. You can start a clothing line with $1 million, but at the very minimum, you'll need enough to make your patterns, make your samples, source your fabrics, so that you have these perfect samples and that you have a photo shoot. And then if you're going to be doing pre-orders I don't feel like ever get, they're not as successful as ordering and then you shipping. But I've had a lot of clients that are successful on Kickstarter. But in order to do a Kickstarter, you've got to have that great first sample, a great video, and then launch. So each style can be different depending on how complicated it is for pattern sample. But if you contact me through makersrow.com/V.Mora, blah, 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 I can take a closer look at it and give you some, estimates. That's what I do with clients, is build budgets together. You are welcome, Nicole. What's the best way to find out about trade shows? Trade shows, you can contact me at Makers Row. There's a lot of different trade shows that are around, but yeah, contact us through Makers Row to find out about trade shows. How do you find a manufacturer? Makers Row. Makers Row has tons of factories listed on their platform, so you can become a member and then you can use their database to find factories. It's really, really great. How can I find a manufacturer? Do you have any recommendations? Yeah, so again, Makers Row. Oh, the sourcing district. I'll read this one. Anna is one of the best people in the industry that you can possibly work with. That's Jay. Hi, Jay from Chicago. Jay is a fabric rep. He's also listed on Makers Row, the sourcing district, located in Chicago. Thanks for tuning in. All right. So does anyone have any other questions? You can ask me anything. Nobody? You guys have to have some more questions. Okay. Best way to find specific kinds of high quality fabric. So when you're looking for a high quality fabric, it's obviously going to be based around price per yardage. I'd say the higher end products are going to be $15 a yard and higher. And even silks. Silks can be $25 a yard, $60 a yard. So you'll just, when you're talking to vendors, be checking their prices and make sure that, you're not going to find a high quality product for less than, $5 a yard. So obviously price per yard equals quality. It's not to say that there aren't great quality fabrics at less than $15 a yard. There's a lot of great options, but yeah, it would be revolved around the price. What if I already have been getting original fabric printed of a kid biker art and sewing everything myself, but now I want to take it to the factory level? What is the minimum yardage I would have to have made? So again, you can find some small minimum printers and fabric vendors that will print on small minimums. Usually the minimum's around 25 yards. From anyone that I know, it'd be 25 yards to print. Or you can have smaller, like you can have 1 or 2 yards printed. It's just more expensive, so it doesn't end up making sense in the cost of goods to have anything less than 25 yards printed. What was 1 and 2? Buying retail fabric for wholesale products. And number 2, cutting corners when it comes to pattern making. Can you help me right from the beginning? Absolutely. So what I like to do with designers when they're just starting is do one-on-one coaching. And within that coaching, we put together your overall plan. What styles are you doing? How many styles? What is it going to cost? What's your timeline? What's your overall aesthetic of your brand, your story? So before we start the patterns and the samples, and before you really start spend money and start investing in your company, we have this plan together. So yes, I do. How can I find a similar fabric sourced locally? Where are you located? But Makers Row, again, will have all of those fabric vendors, and then you can contact them. Unfortunately, a lot of mills themselves aren't located in the United States. So while the vendors are here, or the sales reps are here, it might be produced offshore. So it can be difficult to find fabric produced locally, depending on where you live. There's a lot of mills in North Carolina, cotton mills. There's a lot of cotton mills still around. But yes, I would just try and look on Makers Row to find American made or American companies, American in the name, because then they're sourcing their fabrics domestically or making their fabrics domestically. Any advice on white labeling? Yeah, white labeling is great. You just want to make sure when you're white labeling, that's taking a blank, putting your label on it, maybe you're screen printing it. It's a great option to get your branding out, but you'll be limited in the fit of that garment because you're ordering their garments, and you're limited in the colors. So you're offered the colors that they make that garment in. But yeah, we have plenty of designers that have white labeled. You eventually might want to get more creative and have things more specifically tailored to your customer or your design aesthetic. But yeah, that's the only downfall with white labeling, is you're limited in what you can produce. Do you recommend against hand-drawn patterns? In other words, should patterns be digital? So a lot of the pattern makers, our pattern maker has been in the industry working for like 50 years, and they are not familiar on, they don't even email. Like, they're not familiar with technology at all, which is okay. It's fine. What we do is we have the paper patterns made, we fit the garment, we make sure that those are perfect, and then we take that paper pattern and then we bring it and we digitize it. So we have it digitized. Grading, that's when you have the size medium and you're making the extra small to the extra large. That should be done digitally, because it's just basically like you type in the numbers, your specs and your grading scale, and the computer automatically creates those other sizes. That is way more efficient done digitally, but original patterns can be done on paper, absolutely. Do you know if I'm pricing my products at the proper price point? Is there a formula? We do have a costing formula. If you want to contact makersrow.com/V.Mora, we can talk. Oh, I offer a complimentary 20-minute strategy session. So if you guys are interested in that, you can contact me through Makers Row. When we contact you via Makers Row, how do we find you? So if you type in makersrow.com/V-Mora, I have a page on Makers Row that has contact me. So you just click contact me and then we'll get those messages. How behind do you think manufacturers are in months with this pandemic? So we have sewers sewing from home, and we have pattern makers working from home. Yes, larger factories and production are slowed down. In New York, they closed mid-March. So it's mid-March. So they're about 2 months behind. But they are prepared to work. They are prepared to hit the ground running. A lot of them have been struggling to, make it through and pay their rent. So they are prepared to work when this is lifted. But I would say about 2 months. And if you can, start contacting factories now so that you can be lined up as one of the first projects that they start when they're able to open up their door. So would you suggest making samples before crowdfunding? How long does sample making usually take once you identify a pattern maker? I do, because in my experience with my designers, when they have used some sort of crowdfunding, it's better if you have an actual video of that garment, right? Because otherwise, how are they seeing what you're launching, or how are they seeing what you're going to do? Sketches are great, but a lot of people, don't have that correlation of like, this is a sketch, then this is what it's going to look on me. So all of the crowdfunding that I've seen be successful have actual samples. And I would give yourself 3 months from the time you start until the time you get those final samples. And a lot of that depends on fabric sourcing, because like I said, order the fabric, get the swatches, pick your final fabric, get the sample fabric. That can take 6 weeks alone. Yes, what is the best fabric for screen print t-shirts? Because some ink does not come through. Yeah, so that's some ink doesn't come through on certain fabrics. Yes, so that is specific to the fabric. So to print on a cotton, it's different steps than to print on a poly blend. Normally a poly blend holds prints better than, say, a cotton blend or a natural fabric, but it's not to say you can't print on a natural fabric. You just have to have a printer that has the ability to print on natural fabrics. Okay. And then we've got Kid Biker Apparel has gone ahead and answered that question for you. Fabric from Italy and want to find it locally. Yes, contact me through Makers Row, mika.leah. If you are just starting out, would it be better to focus on one core product for your brand or start with a small collection of several products? I've had designers be successful with several products, and I've had designers be successful with one. So there's no real wrong or right answer for that. it depends on your product. So the designers that I've worked with that have a specific product that they were really successful with, a lot of you guys know the male romper, the romp him. We helped launch their product, and they had one product and they killed it. So usually it's some sort of niche project, or there's something special about that one product. But if you're going to go to market and just go to market with one dress, it might be more of a difficult sell to not have an entire collection to show. I'm having trouble reading these over my face. If you were just starting out, I already read that one. I'm at the just beginning stages of designing. How do I find a manufacturer in a state that I can trust? Like I said, Makers Row. Hi, Anna. Where are the best places to sell online or rent physical spot? Yeah, obviously you want to have your own website to be selling online, and there's a lot of third-party applications that will help sell. But to get into specifics of where to find a physical spot, things like that, that really depends on where you're at, what your customer is. There's no this is the only place to have a brick and mortar store, but it really depends on just customer research and who else is in the neighborhood. Woolen mills in American besides, so American mills, if you go to Makers Row, there's a company that's, it's American something, and they have fabrics and it's all American made. So just go to Makers Row and in the search, type in American fabrics, and I'm sure you'll get fabrics to come up. Do we need to fit test the small and large if the medium was fitted to a model? Yes. I have designers want to skip this step all the time. What she's asking is, I have a size medium, and then before I go to production, do I have to fit the small and large? For your first time, yes. It's the first time you're using this grader. It's the first time you're using this pattern. You want to fit those additional sizes as well, just to make sure, just to double check. If you have a good grader and they're following the specs that you've given, the size chart that you've given, they should be right. 9 times out of 10 they're right, but on that 1 out of 10 times that it's not, you want to take all the steps so that you're not sitting on a production that you can't sell. And fitting the other sizes before you do production is one of those steps. The linen. Yeah, a lot of these questions, you guys, if you contact me through Makers Row, it'll be better because you're asking really specific names of vendors, things like that. I'm starting to mass produce my product. Is it recommended to use multiple manufacturers for specific items if they specialize in different things? The only time that I recommend using different factories is if, say, you're doing denim and leather and a t-shirt. All of those have different equipment that are needed, so you'll probably need to use different factories. But if you're making a line of dresses and it's all made out of the relatively same fabric, then you can go ahead and use the same factory. All right, I'm going to take 2 more questions. Let's see. For the Makers Row, is it a monthly subscription or a one-time payment? It's monthly, but I think they give you the option to pay for a year with a discounted rate than paying monthly. But yeah, it's a monthly subscription. Thank you. You're welcome. You also need to fit on plus size models. How do I find fit models? There's lots of fit agencies just specifically around fit. You can put an ad somewhere. However, when you're using models that aren't professional models, you want to measure them because, well, sometimes they lie. Or maybe, their measurements aren't current. So if you're not working with a professional fit modeling agency, you'll want to measure those models before you fit them or before you even hire them to fit your goods. Any ideas for using a budgeting template? Yeah, we have a budgeting template. There's plenty of budgeting templates, but yes, V.Mora has one. I can help you with that. Any other questions? Can you be a little specific to fabric? Can you be a little specific to fabric purses? I don't think I understand that question. For making bags, you'll just want to definitely take the time to do all the proper steps, just as if it were a sewn product. It's still a sewn product, so the same steps apply. Thank you. You're welcome. I'll be messaging you on Makers Row. Awesome. Again, that is makersrow.com/V-Mora. Yeah. Do you take your perfect sample and test that in the laundry with dry cleaning, or do you make a second perfect sample to wash test? You know, I wash test that perfect sample, just because if you wash it and it doesn't work, it's not perfect. So therefore, you want to find out beforehand. I mean, of course, if you want to preserve one that, you know, this one's going to stay perfect and this one you don't want to risk ruining. But the idea is, if that sample doesn't hold up through the washer and dryer, that's not a perfect sample. I'm considering hiring a company. How can you help me choose the right one? Yeah, that's what we do. So again, if you contact me through V.Mora, we can talk more specifically to your needs. I do a 20-minute strategy session free. So again, if you contact me through Makers Row, I'll send you a link to schedule 20 minutes free to talk to me. In your opinion, what is the least amped to begin a t-shirt line? Maybe money? Is it better to partner with a vendor that also makes patterns, or find a pattern maker separately? If they're good at patterns and they also make samples, that's fine. It's not that it has to be one or the other. A lot of pattern makers do make samples, but the thing is, pattern making tends to be more hourly and more expensive than sewers. So let's say you're paying your pattern maker $45 an hour, and that's a flat rate for them. So you're paying them $45 an hour for sample making. You can usually find a sample maker at less than your pattern maker. I have a unique brocade material pattern for design. I need to customize it. I can't find manufacturing. Again, Makers Row is a great platform for manufacturing, or for manufacturers. And then also V.Mora, we work as your production managers to manage your production for you and find the perfect partner. Great, count me in. Perfect. Where can you find pattern makers? Again, Makers Row might have some. If not, you can contact us. We do that. We make patterns. What are your thoughts on material being imported versus material? It looks like it didn't finish. Most material is imported. A lot of it comes from offshore. There's a limited amount of vendors that are still stateside. So even if your vendor or your sales rep is here, a lot of times that is actually, the mill is offshore. So I don't have anything against that. What is the least amount of money to start a t-shirt line? What is the best way to go about to keep costs low? So that's a pretty big question. I mean, if you, I don't know, if you wanted to just get blank t-shirts and start printing on them and selling them as one-offs, that's probably the least expensive way to do it, instead of doing an entire production. Sorry, what are your thoughts on being imported versus cost-wise? It's more so about the minimums, so how many minimum yardage you're using, and if it's a smaller vendor and it's offering smaller minimums, a lot of times the prices are higher because of that. but I don't think that there's a better or a worse. If you can find a mill here that has a fabric that you like, great. It's just about the resources that we have. Okay, lots of questions, you guys. So I am going to give you guys, once again, how to reach out to me. I didn't get to all my questions. Keep in touch. Do you also know wholesale vendors for fabrics? Yep, we do fabric sourcing for our clients, but Makers Row also is a great platform for that. If you don't have the knowledge on fabrics, is it better to hire a designer or to hire an agency like yours to do the search? So what I do a lot of times with designers that don't have the knowledge is I do this one-on-one coaching. So I provide you with vendors and what to say and what to ask for, and these are vendors that I know. So I do this coaching if you're wanting to learn. And then Embark Live is going to have a bunch of experts. So I would either find someone that has that information that can teach you, or yes, hire somebody to do it. I mean, there's really no other choices there. But that was great. That was the first 5. We're just doing little 20 minutes. So we're going to do another 20 minutes on Wednesday at 4 o'clock. Next 5 steps, more Q&A. And again, I am Anna Livermore from V.Mora. We are launching Embark Live. It's going to be a great place. And yep, what is my contact? So Anna Livermore, V.Mora. You can reach us at makersrow.com/V-Mora. So, I feel so bad. I didn't get to all these questions, but like I said, reach out to me through the Makers Row platform. You just go to makersrow.com. If you Google search V.Mora, we will come up. And I will see you guys on Wednesday at 4 o'clock. So thank you so much. It was great to have all of you. I just love talking to you guys and being there and sharing my information. So I look forward to seeing you guys at Wednesday at 4 o'clock. Oh, and then next Monday at 3. Basically all the Mondays in May at 3 o'clock, I'll be sharing different topics and different things for designers to help you guys along with your launch. So thank you so much, and we will see you Wednesday.